I'm here to talk about what happens when non-techies end up getting involved with the technical aspects of projects, and how to survive that. So let's meet Ant. Ant is a non-techie who is going to be helping out in this talk. He's well-meaning. He knows a little bit, he's used computers, but he's not in a technical team. Well, how does he end up in being involved in a technical project? It can happen in a couple of ways. Maybe we have a project that's been running for some time, and somebody, let's call them management, go, oh, to help out, to speed things up a bit, why doesn't Ant come along? Because he knows a little bit of things. Maybe he could just edit the text that's in the user interface, or maybe he knows how to create websites and could do a bit of the templates, or something like that. And that's great, except it turns out that his way of working doesn't involve any of the software tools in dev environment that we're used to in the dev team. And we can't suddenly expect him to learn the Unix command line and Vim and Git and whatever else, when he knows Dreamweaver, he can point and click and create some HTML, and that's not really going to be usable to Ant. Anybody been there in that situation? Or you can have the opposite, whereby what happens is, unbeknown to you, Ant has written a little script to automate something in his team, or maybe set up a website that is just for something used in his team, and that's all fine, and he's on top of it, and then suddenly there's a little issue with it, or it needs extending, or perhaps somebody has noticed that it isn't secure, and can you retrospectively fix some security to this, please? Okay, well that's fine, we're technical, we can go and help. But then you find the same thing the opposite way around. That I turn up at Ant's workstation, because this project exists on Ant's computer, and maybe on a live server as well, that he FTPs directly to it. And so the way to help is to sit down in the chair next to him, and then tell him what to type, but then I find that I suddenly look like a fool who knows nothing, and I'm completely helpless. Because he's using, well, in some time, Ant was using Windows, an operating system I don't use. He was using various applications that I've never seen before in my life. And then when he's stuck in something, I'm saying, oh, let's just view the HTTP headers, or look in the log, or can we diff those files, or, oh, a load of tools that he hasn't got installed, and I'm completely stymied as the so-called expert as to how I can help on his project. Anybody been there that way round? There's a few. So, what can we do? Or, the alternative title of this talk, how to trick Ant into using Git. Or, I'm using Git as a placeholder, any version control system would do. So, here are some things that we did. And it's not the specifics that are important, it's the general idea, the principles behind it. The first thing was I wanted control of the live server that these other projects were going on to. That people just bought some web hosting or whatever it is and sorted it out. Either me getting access to the server or transferring things over, it's on a server under my control that I've got SSH access to. That makes things a lot easier and doesn't really affect Ant. But in particular, it allows secret Git. If you've now got, even if there's only one copy of this project on a live server, and there doesn't have to be a repository or anything else, you can run that, and at least from that point onwards, it is under version control. And if I make a change, I can commit it through Git. I can also, now there's a repository, take a copy of it and put it on a dev server where I can try changes out safely, and I have my normal dev tools available. And if Ant makes a change, then because it's Git, I will get them across to my dev environment. And if Ant uploads something to the server, at some point I notice and I commit it. I try and guess what the commit message should be, looking at the intent of what's done. It's by no means ideal, but the point is, it's better than what we had before, and at least there is some version control going on. It's a step forward. Okay, but then I mentioned there if ant load uploads to the server. Now what he was doing before was FTP drag and dropping files through to some cheapo web hosting, and I've only set up SSH access to this server. Well, how would I upload files if I just wanted to copy some over? rsync. And it turns out rsync is available for Windows. I didn't want to inflict the entirety of Cygwin on Ant, but I found that Cygwin's rsync.exe is available as part of some software called Delta Copy, which is free. If you download that, rsync.exe and the DLLs are init, copyable, and just movable, and you can ignore the graphical interface and the timing and everything else Delta Copy puts on top. Ant, of course, isn't going to want to type in command lines like that, but that's not a problem, because we can just create a Windows shortcut icon on his desktop that runs that command. Except we actually need to do the server connection bit on that. We need some kind of SSH. So the command ends up looking a bit more like that. plink comes from putty. It's the sort of batched, non-displaying version of putty. I looked at OpenSSH's client as well, but actually picked plink because, I'm going to say plink, it just sounds more fun, doesn't it? Plink. Picked that because we wanted to use SSH keys rather than passwords, as anybody would. And with a key, you want it to be secure with a passphrase, which you want an agent. And putty also comes with pagent, which works quite nicely. And so that's why I chose to use plink as the SSH connection. So the command now becomes like that. And that means you need to generate a key, but putty also comes with puttygen. For most of the other steps, I tried to set this up and hide it from Ant. For actually generating the key, I wrote instructions for how to access the dev server on our internal wiki and put them there and let them do it themselves. Partly because, does anybody know how you generate the random entropy in puttygen? Anybody? You have to waggle the mouse around the screen to generate some random. I thought that's quite fun for Ant to be doing, feeling he's on a technical project while waggling a mouse around the screen. Except that doesn't quite work either, because Windows and Cygwin have different concepts of standard input, standard output, and so the things don't get passed through correctly from the agent via rsync. Anyway, you need some software called Cygnative, which links Cygwin and native Windows commands together, which you put in the middle. So we have got pagent that is holding the key, running rsync, which is running Cygnative, which is running plink to actually manage the connection. But Ant doesn't need to know any of this. It was a pain to work out, but hey, I did it once. There we are. It works. I still didn't quite like the fact that Ant is hard-coded a couple of times there. His SSH key in the top line and the username to the server at the bottom. So I thought, well, we can do this. Windows has environment variables, so we can pick the right directory for any user. And as long as I create users on the Linux server with the same username as they have on the Office Windows network, then that will work fine. Almost. The thing is, Windows usernames are mixed case. Or at least, they're often mixed case, but I couldn't guarantee they would always be the same mixed case, even if I wanted to create a mixed case Unix username. So what we actually want in there is the lowercase version of %username. For which I decided to pretend it's 1994 and write a batch file. Does anybody know how to make a string lowercase in a batch file? No, me neither, but thank you for Stack Overflow, because that's how you do it. I copied and pasted it, it worked. It doesn't matter, because it's in a batch file, I copy and paste it once, I don't have to read it, and double clicks on it. It's fine. This is about getting stuff working. And now it's not just Ant, but actually any other members of the team as well. We can get them set up and this will work. The obvious question at this point is, but why am I acting like it's 1994? Haven't I heard of PowerShell? Surely that's the new modern Windows thing. It turns out if you have a .ps1 file that's PowerShell by default, and you double click on the icon, what does it do? Anyone know? The default action is it opens the source in Notepad, which is probably a security feature, And there's ways around that by writing a batch file to run the PowerShell. But anyway, this seemed like the same thing. So no, not using PowerShell wasn't the stupid thing. The really stupid thing is that actually, on all of the Windows workstations in our office, we have this installed. I could have written the thing. Our main internal software is a graphical application written in Perl with WX widgets. So anyway, but the point is that this batch file worked, and we've got a happy ant. Actually, even happy it was better than before, because previously he was dragging and dropping individual files to upload, whereas with rsync, it's automatically working out the right changes, a lot easier for him, and faster. And I think this is important, that at each change where I'm trying to take Ant, a non-techie, and make him slightly more techie, slightly fit in with the dev way of looking at things, to help our team, if at each step there's also an advantage to him, that is really helpful in terms of him being enthusiastic and up for this change. It's not kind of, we are inflicting pain on you and forcing you to fit in with us, but that it's better all around. So he's got that, and I've got Git. So we were fairly happy with that. There was another project. It was a LAMP website, Linux server, Apache, MySQL, but well, maybe the P didn't stand for Perl in this one, but it could do. It would be, you know, just as valid. And it happened to be developed on the live server before it was live, and then it was just launched. But then, for creating V2, this is the point when you don't bring the techies in at the beginning of these projects, of course. No, you wait, because techies are very busy. You've seen how long their to-do lists are. You don't want to disturb them too early. So I'm then brought in to say, look, can we have a dev server so we can make changes other than by putting them live and have a look in them in advance? Now, we could have installed Apache, MySQL, and whatever that P thing was on the Windows workstations and create a dev environment there. But I decided not to for various reasons. So instead, I set up a Linux dev server. Okay, so what we need for Ant now, as requirements are, he needs a way of being able to edit files on that dev server, and when he's happy with it, pushing changes live. And of course, we need to do that in a way that is Ant-friendly, not in the way that I would do it, which, as a clue, for Ant, well, not that. In terms of the access, I went for Samba, tried OpenSSH for SSHFS for Windows and Samba, just trying them each, hitting them in turn, and Samba was the one I happened to get working first. SSHFS does work, but you can't run Git or SVN over it without recompiling, so I lost interest. With Samba, the notable tip for setting things up is while you're trying to make this work, you've sometimes got Windows authenticating, sometimes haven't, and sometimes Windows is refusing to connect, but not displaying a please login prompt because it thinks you've already provided a username and password 10 minutes ago when something changed. And you go, no, look, it's not working, please ask me again. There is a logout option to making SMB connections through Windows. Anybody know where it is? It's in the control panel. I found that out about a week too late, but I'm sharing it now in case anyone else has to do that. And so I mentioned a problem with SSHFS was that Git didn't work over it. Git? Well, yeah, we set up GitHub for Windows, a free client available from GitHub. Reason being, the second part, editing files on the dev server and then putting them live. And I just explained to Ant, this is the software that we will use for putting things live. Well, some software has to be used, so why not Git? And GitHub for Windows is okay for basics. At the top, in this screenshot, it says no uncommitted changes. If you have to edit some files locally, you get a list of which files they are, the diffs on the left, and a box appears for you to type in the commit message. There's an OK button. at the top where it says in sync, that sync button, if you press it, does a fetch. It then rebases your commits against what is fetched. It then does a push, all in one. So it was simple enough for Ant to use and close enough to my way of working that it would do. The next thing I would have looked at would have been Tortoise Git, which is embedded with Windows File Manager. You can right-click and do things. I haven't dismissed it. It might be excellent, but because the first thing I looked at was this, and that was good enough, didn't get round to looking at the next thing. Okay, so that's making changes and committing them. That's pushed them up to GitHub. It's helped. We were already using GitHub as in the office. It's where the tech team was storing the code anyway. For actually going live, well, it's another batch file, but this case a bit simpler. Basically, we're just using Plink and then doing a git pull on the right directory in the server. And that mostly worked. There was a little snag that various Windows editors, when you save a file, were converting all the line breaks into being Windows style with carriage return line feed. Not a problem in itself, except whenever you look at a diff, every line in the file has changed. There are Git settings for doing that, apparently. We actually just found the options in Dreamweaver and Notepad++ and Blue Griffin and so on for saving Unix format, and that was absolutely fine. Now, this isn't perfect. Sometimes Ant writes commit messages which aren't exactly what a developer would have written. Sometimes he conflates a few different things in one commit. But I'm still happy with that, because he is making commits. The next stage, we can sort that out and work on things getting better. This isn't how do we make everything perfect straight away, it's how do we make things better than they were before. And I'm just so delighted that we've got this at all. And Ant was happy with it as well. He likes branches. We've been able to, GitHub Windows lets you do that. You can drag and drop in to do merges. He likes that Git allows undo. If something doesn't seem quite right or he's messed up, he can call me over and I can do magic Git things at the command line that somehow make everything reappear and he hasn't lost any work, which he loves. And he gets to see me using the Git shell and he's now beginning to learn a few Git commands, which is also useful, but it's sort of helping him get up to the next level. The next thing we needed was MySQL access. I found Heidi SQL. The thing I particularly liked about it is in the connections, one of the options for connecting is SSH access over plink. We already have that working. We just need to create a desktop shortcut icon for Heidi SQL that runs Pagent and then Heidi SQL, and we're sorted. That's a view of editing a table, and Ant was really happy with that because previously he was using PHPMyAdmin, and I didn't pick this for its easy view or anything, but he said, yeah, it's much easier to use. So from his point of view, I've made his life happier as well. That's just some examples of what we've done. I'm not recommending the precise software I happen to use. I'm certainly not recommending Windows batch files. But I do recommend the general approach, that this can work. It doesn't have to be a source of pain on either side, and it can be useful. The important thing is to find the middle ground between the two of you. Take things one step at a time. Don't unrealistically expect Ant to just jump up and be at the level that you are, thinking like you are, using all of your tools, having learned them overnight. That's not going to help. You are probably going to need to set up tools that help Ant, and they're probably not going to be tools you've used before, but nor him, and as the techie, it's our job to find those tools, even if it means searching Stack Overflow for random stuff on Windows things you've never seen, and get those working. It really helps if, when you make a change, it's better for both of you, because that keeps everybody happy. Make allowances. The things like the quality of commits and so on, we're doing this in stages. Don't expect Ant to be perfect. He's willing and happy to help as an amateur, but he isn't a techie, and we found Git was the tipping point. The biggest single change we had that improved things was once Ant was on to Git, that really helped. Thank you.